First contact and unexpected connection. Zara glided through the corridors of the celestial nexus, her bioluminescent skin casting a soft, ethereal glow in the dim lighting of the space station. As a Luminar healer, she was accustomed to the reverent hush that followed in her wake, the awed stares of various alien species as they witnessed her graceful movements. The Luminars were renowned across the galaxy for their advanced healing abilities, which bordered on the miraculous to less evolved races. Today, however, Zara's usually serene demeanor was tinged with anticipation. The Celestial Nexus, a neutral hub for interspecies cooperation and trade, was about to welcome its first human delegation. Humans were a relatively new addition to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only a few decades ago. Their rapid technological advancement and adaptability had caught the attention of many established species, including the Luminars. As she approached the docking bay, Zora's inner light pulsed with excitement. She had studied the physiology of countless species, but humans remained an enigma. Their resilience and capacity for recovery from injuries that would be fatal to other races both fascinated and perplexed her. The airlock hissed open, and a group of humans stepped onto the station. Zara's gaze was immediately drawn to a tall, broad-shouldered man with striking blue eyes and a confident stride. He seemed to exude an energy that set him apart from his companions. "Welcome to the Celestial Nexus," Zara said, her melodic voice translating seamlessly through the station's advanced communication systems. "I am Zara, chief healer of this sector." The man with the blue eyes stepped forward, a warm smile lighting up his face. "Thank you for the welcome, Zara. I'm Jack Harrison, lead explorer for the human expedition." He extended his hand, then hesitated, realizing the gesture might not translate across species. Zara, however, was intrigued. She had read about this human custom of physical contact as a greeting. Cautiously, she extended her own slender, luminescent hand and grasped Jack's. The moment their skin touched, a jolt of energy surged through Zara's body. Her bioluminescence flared brightly, startling the other humans. Jack's eyes widened, his grip tightening instinctively around Zora's hand. What was that?" Jack gasped, slowly releasing Zora's hand. Zara stared at her palm, her mind racing to comprehend what had just occurred. I'm not certain," she admitted, her usual composure shaken. "I've never experienced anything like it before." The other members of the human delegation and the alien staff of the Celestial Nexus watched the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Zara quickly regained her professional demeanor, pushing aside her confusion for the moment. "Please, allow me to show you to your quarters," she said, gesturing towards the residential section of the station. As they walked, Zara couldn't help but steal glances at Jack, wondering if he felt the lingering effects of their touch as strongly as she did. The tour of the station proceeded without further incident, but Zara's mind was elsewhere. She found herself captivated by Jack's enthusiasm for the alien technology and his insightful questions about the various species represented on the Nexus. There was something about his energy, his very presence, that seemed to resonate with her on a level she couldn't explain. As the day wore on, Zara was called away to attend to her healing duties. She bid farewell to the human delegation, her gaze lingering on Jack for a moment longer than necessary. Little did she know that their paths would cross again sooner than expected, under far more dire circumstances. Later that evening, as Zara was finishing up her rounds in the medical bay, alarms blared throughout the station. The sudden cacophony was followed by a violent shudder that sent equipment crashing to the floor. "Emergency in Sector 7, a voice announced over the intercom. "Structural damage reported. All medical personnel, prepare for casualties." Zara's heart raced as she gathered her healing implements. Sector 7. That was where the human quarters were located. She rushed towards the site of the emergency, her mind flooding with possibilities. Had there been an accident? An attack? When she arrived at Sector 7, chaos reigned. A portion of the corridor had collapsed, trapping several individuals beneath the debris. Among the wounded, Zara spotted a familiar face. Jack Harrison, his blue eyes now clouded with pain as he struggled to free himself from a fallen support beam. Without hesitation, Zara rushed to his side. "Don't move," she instructed, her hands already glowing with healing energy. "I'm here to help." As she placed her hands on Jack's injured body, the strange connection they had felt earlier returned with overwhelming intensity. Zara gasped as she felt Jack's pain as if it were her own, his life force intertwining with hers in a way that defied all her medical knowledge. Jack's eyes locked onto hers, a mixture of awe and fear in his gaze. "What's happening?" he whispered through gritted teeth. "I don't know," Zara admitted, her voice trembling. "But I think I can heal you. Just trust me." As Zara channeled her healing energy into Jack, she found herself able to sense every injury, every damaged cell in his body with unprecedented clarity. More than that, she could feel his emotions, his fear, his determination, his fascination with her, and this strange bond they shared. The healing process, which would typically take hours, was completed in a matter of minutes. As the last of Jack's injuries knitted themselves close, the connection between them slowly faded, leaving both Zara and Jack breathless and bewildered. Jack sat up, flexing his arms and legs in disbelief. "That was incredible," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "I've never felt anything like it. It's as if you were inside my mind, my very being." Zara nodded, still trying to process what had occurred. "The connection we share, it amplified my healing abilities beyond anything I've ever experienced. This shouldn't be possible." As they helped the other injured individuals and worked to clear the debris, Zara and Jack exchanged meaningful glances. They both knew that what had transpired between them was more than a simple act of healing. It was the beginning of something that could change the course of human-alien relations forever. As the crisis in Sector 7 was brought under control, Zara and Jack found a quiet moment amidst the aftermath. The air was thick with unspoken questions and possibilities. "We need to understand what this means," Jack said, his voice low and intense. "This connection between us, it could be the key to so much more than just healing." Zara nodded, her luminescence pulsing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Agreed. But we must proceed carefully. Such a bond between different species is unprecedented. It could be seen as a threat by some, or an opportunity by others." As they stood there, contemplating the implications of their discovery, neither Zara nor Jack could shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The universe, it seemed, had much more in store for them, and for the future of human-alien relations. Unraveling the mystery. The days following the incident in Sector 7 were a whirlwind of activity on the celestial nexus. As news of the unusual healing spread, Zara and Jack found themselves at the center of intense scrutiny from both their own species and the station's diverse inhabitants. Zara stood before the Council of Elders, her luminescence dimmed in deference to the ancient luminars who governed her people. Their faces were impassive, but she could sense their unease. Healer Zara, the chief elder, spoke, his voice resonating with centuries of wisdom. "Your report is troubling. A connection of this nature with a human is unprecedented. It could upset the balance we have maintained for millennia." Zara straightened her posture, her inner light pulsing with conviction. "Respected elders, I believe this connection could be the key to advancing our healing abilities. The potential benefits for all species are immeasurable." The elders exchanged glances, their bioluminescence flickering in a silent conversation. Finally, the chief elder spoke again. "We will allow you to continue your research, but with caution. Do not let your fascination with this human cloud your judgment." Meanwhile, Jack faced his own challenges. In a secure communication chamber, he stood before a holographic projection of his superiors from Earth Command. Admiral Chen's stern face filled the screen. "Harrison, do you understand the implications of what you're reporting? An alien species with the ability to connect directly with human consciousness. This could be either our greatest opportunity or our gravest threat. Jack nodded, his jaw set with determination. I understand, Admiral. But I've experienced this connection firsthand. It's not a threat. It's a breakthrough. With your permission, I'd like to continue working with Zora to unlock its potential. After a tense moment, Admiral Chen sighed. Proceed, but with extreme caution. We'll be monitoring the situation closely. And Harrison, he added, his expression softening slightly, be careful. We're in uncharted territory here. As the transmission ended, Jack leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders. He knew that his actions in the coming days could shape the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. Outside the communication chamber, Zara waited, her luminescence pulsing with anxiety. When Jack emerged, their eyes met, and a flicker of their connection sparked between them. How did it go? Zara asked, falling into step beside him as they walked through the station's corridors. Jack ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Zara had come to recognize as a sign of his frustration. They're cautious, but they've given us the green light to continue our research. Your elders? Much the same, Zara replied. They fear the unknown, but they cannot deny the potential of our discovery. As they reached the research lab assigned to them, Jack paused, turning to face Zara. We need to understand this connection better. Are you ready to try again? Zara nodded, her inner light brightening with anticipation. Yes, but we must proceed carefully. We don't fully understand the effects this might have on either of us. They entered the lab, a sterile environment filled with a mix of luminar healing equipment and human medical technology. At the center stood a specially designed interaction chamber, built to monitor and record every aspect of their connection. As they prepared for the experiment, tension filled the air. Zara's luminescence flickered nervously, while Jack's hands trembled slightly as he attached monitoring devices to his temples. Ready? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara nodded, extending her hands. As their fingers intertwined, the now familiar surge of energy flowed between them. The monitoring equipment came to life, screens filling with data as the connection deepened. Suddenly, Zara gasped. In her mind's eye, she saw flashes of Jack's memories. His childhood on Earth, his first space flight, the wonder he felt upon seeing alien worlds for the first time. The emotions accompanying these visions were overwhelming, a kaleidoscope of human experiences she had never imagined. Jack, too, was lost in a sea of alien perceptions. He felt the cosmic dance of energy that the Luminars perceived, the interconnectedness of all living things. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly transformative. As they delved deeper into the connection, something unexpected happened. A shadow crossed their shared consciousness, a flicker of a threat looming on the horizon. Both Zara and Jack saw a vision of massive ships, dark and ominous, approaching the celestial nexus. They broke the connection simultaneously, stumbling backward, gasping for air. Alarms blared from the monitoring equipment, drawing the attention of the research team stationed outside. Did you see that? Jack panted, his eyes wide with shock. Zara nodded, her luminescence fluctuating wildly. The ships. They're coming. But how did we see that? It wasn't a memory. Before they could discuss further, the lab doors burst open. A team of medical professionals, both human and luminar, rushed in, concern etched on their faces. Are you all right? Dr. Ilara, the lead luminar researcher, asked as she began examining Zara. Jack waved off the human medic approaching him. We're fine, but we need to speak to station security immediately. I think we've uncovered a threat to the Nexus. Hours later, after intense debriefings with station security and their respective superiors, Zara and Jack found themselves in a high-level strategy meeting. The station's commanding officer, a stern Arcturian named Commander Vex, addressed the gathered representatives from various species. Based on the vision experienced by healer Zara and explorer Harrison, "We believe a significant threat is approaching the celestial nexus," Vex announced, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "While we cannot be certain of the accuracy of this psychic prediction, we must take it seriously." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled aliens. A Zorbian diplomat raised a tentacle. "How can we trust the word of two individuals who have formed an unexplained and potentially dangerous connection?" Jack stepped forward, his voice firm. "I understand your concern, but this connection has already proven its worth in healing. Now, it's warning us of a threat. We'd be fools to ignore it." Zara joined him, her luminescence pulsing with conviction. "Our peoples have long sought ways to bridge the gaps between species. This connection, however unexpected, could be the key to our survival and to a new era of cooperation." As the debate raged on, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Commander Vex's communication device chirped urgently. "Multiple unidentified ships have just dropped out of hyperspace near the Nexus," a panicked voice reported. "They're not responding to hails and are approaching rapidly." The room erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. The vision had been real, and the threat was now at their doorstep. Commander Vex raised his voice above the din. "To battle stations. All non-essential personnel, proceed to emergency shelters immediately." As the room emptied, Zara and Jack exchanged a look of determination. Their connection had warned them of this danger. Now, it might be the key to surviving it. "We need to get to the command center," Jack said, already moving towards the door. "Our connection might give us insights into the attacker's intentions." Zara nodded, falling into step beside him. As they raced through the corridors of the celestial nexus, the station shuddered under the first wave of enemy fire. Lights flickered, and the air filled with the acrid smell of burning circuitry. They reached the command center just as Commander Vex was organizing the station's defenses. The main view screen showed a swarm of sleek, predatory ships surrounding the nexus, their weapons glowing with malevolent energy. "Harrison, Zara," Vex acknowledged them with a curt nod. "I hope this connection of yours can offer us some advantage. We're outnumbered and outgunned." Jack and Zara approached the central console, their hands instinctively finding each other. As their fingers intertwined, the familiar surge of energy flowed between them. This time, however, they focused their shared consciousness outward, towards the attacking fleet. The command center faded from their perception, replaced by a vast, interconnected web of alien minds. The attackers, a collective consciousness of beings consumed by a hunger for energy and resources. They saw the celestial nexus not as a haven of cooperation, but as a prize to be consumed. "They're called the Void Collective," Zara gasped, her voice distant as she remained partially immersed in the vision. "They consume entire worlds, entire species to fuel their expansion." Jack's face was a mask of concentration. "They're not just after the station. They want to use it as a gateway to invade multiple systems simultaneously." Commander Vex's multiple eyes widened in alarm. "Can you see any weaknesses? Any way to stop them?" Zara and Jack delved deeper, their combined consciousness pushing against the alien minds surrounding them. Suddenly, they found a thread of discord, a faction within the Void Collective that feared the consequences of their endless consumption. "There's a chance," Jack said, his voice strained with effort. "A part of their collective wants to break away, to find a new way of existing. If we can amplify that dissent." Zara's luminescence flared brightly. "We can shatter their unity. Commander, if we can broadcast a signal on these frequencies," she rattled off a series of numbers, "we might be able to disrupt their collective consciousness." As the command crew scrambled to implement their plan, Jack and Zara maintained their connection, pushing their newfound abilities to the limit. They became a bridge between the defenders of the Nexus and the dissenting faction of the Void Collective, facilitating a silent rebellion among the attackers. The battle raged on, the Nexus's shields straining under the onslaught. But as the minutes ticked by, the attack began to falter. Ship after ship broke formation, their crews thrown into confusion as the collective consciousness that guided them fractured. "It's working," Commander Vex exclaimed, his usual stoicism breaking into an expression of hope. "Their fleet is in disarray. Prepare a counterattack." As the defenders of the celestial nexus seized their advantage, turning the tide of the battle, Jack and Zara finally broke their connection. They stumbled, exhausted but triumphant, supporting each other as they watched the enemy fleet retreat. The command center erupted in cheers, representatives of a dozen species celebrating their unlikely victory. But for Jack and Zara, the implications of what they had just accomplished were only beginning to sink in. Their connection had not only saved the celestial nexus, but had opened up possibilities that neither humans nor Luminars had ever dreamed of. As they looked at each other, both knew that this was just the beginning of a journey that would reshape the galaxy. Commander Vex approached them, his multiple eyes blinking in an expression of grudging respect. "It seems we owe you a debt of gratitude. Your unique abilities have saved countless lives today." Jack nodded, still catching his breath. "Thank you, Commander. But we couldn't have done it without the cooperation of everyone on this station. This victory belongs to all of us." Zara's luminescence pulsed in agreement. This is what the celestial nexus was built for, bringing different species together to face common challenges. Today, we've proven that our differences can be our greatest strength. As the adrenaline of battle faded, new challenges loomed on the horizon. The galaxy now knew of the threat posed by the Void Collective. More importantly, it had witnessed the incredible potential of the human-Luminar connection. Jack and Zara exchanged a look of determination. They had unlocked only a fraction of what their bond could achieve. As repairs on the station began and diplomatic channels buzzed with news of the attack, both knew that their journey of discovery was far from over. The celestial nexus, once a simple hub for interspecies cooperation, had become the focal point of a new era in galactic history. And at the center of it all stood a human explorer and a Luminar healer, their unprecedented connection a beacon of hope for the challenges that lay ahead. Interstellar conflict. In the weeks following the attack on the celestial nexus, the station became a hive of activity. Representatives from dozens of species converged, drawn by reports of the miraculous defense against the Void Collective. At the heart of this maelstrom stood Jack and Zara, their unique bond now the subject of intense scrutiny and hope. Jack stood at the viewport in his quarters, gazing out at the star-studded expanse. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on his shoulders. Behind him, Zara entered, her luminescence a soothing presence in the dimly lit room. "The Galactic Council is assembling," she said softly. "They're calling for us to testify about our abilities." Jack turned, a wry smile on his face. "I'm not sure I'm ready to be a galactic celebrity. Are you?" Zara's light pulsed with amusement. "I don't think we have much choice. Our connection, it's changing everything." Before Jack could respond, an urgent chime filled the room. Commander Vex's voice crackled over the intercom. "Harrison, Zara, report to the command center immediately. We have a situation." Exchanging worried glances, they hurried through the station's corridors. The command center was a flurry of activity when they arrived, screens flickering with incoming data streams. Commander Vex turned to them, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of distress. "We've received reports from multiple sectors. The Void Collective is on the move, and in greater numbers than we've ever seen." A holographic map materialized in the center of the room, showing vast swaths of space. Red indicators pulsed across it, each representing a Void Collective fleet. "They're not just raiding anymore," Jack murmured, studying the map. "This is a full-scale invasion." Zara stepped closer, her luminescence dimming with concern. "But why now? What's driving them to such aggression?" An incoming transmission interrupted their speculation. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared, his face grim. "Harrison, the situation is critical. Earth has pledged its support to a multi-species alliance against the Void Collective, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. We need your insight." and we need it now. Jack straightened, years of training kicking in. Understood, Admiral. What do you need from us? Intelligence, Chen replied. Your connection with the Void Collective during the Nexus attack gave us our first real insight into their nature. We need more. Can you and Zara use your abilities to gather strategic information? Jack looked at Zara, who nodded resolutely. We'll do our best, Admiral. But I want to make one thing clear. Zara and I are in this together. We're not just a human asset, but a joint human Luminar team. Chen's expression softened slightly. Understood, Harrison. The Alliance needs all the help it can get. Make it happen. As the transmission ended, Jack and Zara moved to a quiet corner of the command center. They had practiced deepening their connection since the Nexus attack, but never with such high stakes. Are you ready? Jack asked, extending his hands. Zara's luminescence brightened as she took his hands in hers. Always. As their fingers intertwined, the familiar surge of energy flowed between them. The command center faded away, replaced by the vast, interconnected consciousness of the Void Collective. This time, they pushed deeper, past the surface thoughts, and into the very core of the hive mind. Images flashed through their shared consciousness. Countless worlds consumed, civilizations extinguished, all to fuel the collective's insatiable hunger. But beneath it all, they sensed something new. Fear. They're afraid, Zara gasped, her voice distant. The unity we disrupted during the Nexus attack, it showed them they're vulnerable. Jack's brow furrowed in concentration. That's why they're pushing so hard now. They think if they can conquer enough territory quickly, they can crush any resistance before it forms. They delved deeper, seeking strategic information. Suddenly, they encountered a barrier, a wall of psychic energy that rebuffed their probe. They've adapted, Jack grunted, sweat beading on his forehead. They're actively fighting against our intrusion. Zara's luminescence flared as she poured more energy into their connection. We can't give up. The fate of the galaxy depends on what we learn here. With a monumental effort, they pushed against the barrier. For a moment, it held firm, then shattered like glass. A flood of information poured into their minds. Fleet movements, attack plans, and the location of the Void Collective's central hub. The backlash of breaking through the barrier threw them out of their trance. Jack and Zara stumbled, gasping for air, as the command center snapped back into focus around them. We have it, Jack panted, leaning heavily on a nearby console. Their plans, their weaknesses, everything. Commander Vex hurried over, concern and excitement warring in his expression. What did you discover? As Jack and Zara relayed the intelligence they had gathered, the mood in the command center shifted from despair to cautious hope. They had a fighting chance, but the road ahead would be fraught with danger. Over the next few days, the celestial nexus became the nerve center of the Alliance's war effort. Ships from dozens of species converged, forming the most diverse fleet the galaxy had ever seen. At its heart were Jack and Zara, their unique abilities making them invaluable to the war effort. But as the preparations for the counterattack intensified, so did the pressure on the human Luminar duo. Their connection was pushing the boundaries of their physiology, each deep dive into the Void Collective's consciousness, leaving them more drained than the last. One evening, as they sat in the station's arboretum seeking a moment of peace, Zara turned to Jack, her luminescence pulsing with concern. Jack, I'm worried, she said softly. Each time we connect, I feel like we're losing a piece of ourselves. What if we push too far? Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. The familiar energy sparked between them, but it was muted, tired. I know. I feel it too. But what choice do we have? If we don't do this, billions will die. Zara's light dimmed. There has to be another way. Something we're missing. Before Jack could respond, an alarm blared throughout the station. Commander Vex's voice came over the intercom, urgent and strained. All hands to battle stations. Void collective forces have breached our outer defenses. This is not a drill. Jack and Zara sprinted towards the command center, the station shuddering around them as the first volleys of enemy fire struck home. They arrived to find chaos, screens showing multiple Void collective ships pressing their attack, while the Alliance fleet scrambled to mount a defense. "They're targeting our command and control systems," an officer shouted over the din. "If they take those out, we'll be sitting ducks." Commander Vex turned to Jack and Zara, desperation in his eyes. "We need a miracle. Can you use your connection to disrupt their attack like you did before?" Jack and Zara exchanged a look. They were exhausted, their abilities strained to the breaking point. But the fate of not just the Nexus, but the entire Alliance, hung in the balance. "We'll try," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "But this might be our last shot. We need to make it count." They clasped hands, and the world fell away. The Void Collective's consciousness engulfed them, vast and alien. But this time, something was different. The fear they had sensed before had grown, warping the Collective's unity. In that moment of clarity, Jack and Zara realized the truth. The Void Collective's aggression wasn't just about resources or territory. It was existential panic, a desperate attempt to consume enough energy to stave off their own extinction. With this understanding came an idea, not to fight the Collective, but to offer an alternative. Through their connection, Jack and Zara reached out not with force, but with empathy. They showed the Collective glimpses of cooperation between species, of technologies that could sustain rather than consume. They offered a vision of a future where the Void Collective could exist without the need for endless consumption. The effect was immediate and staggering. Confusion rippled through the attacking fleet. Ship after ship broke off their attack, their crews grappling with concepts foreign to their hive mind. In the command center, officers watched in amazement as the Void Collective's assault crumbled. But their jubilation was short-lived as they turned to see Jack and Zara collapse, the strain of their effort finally overwhelming them. As medical teams rushed to their aid, Commander Vex stared at the viewport, watching the Void Collective ships retreat. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. And its two most valuable assets now lay unconscious, their fate uncertain. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Void Collective's aggression had been halted, but at what cost? And what would the future hold for the unprecedented alliance that had formed in the face of this threat? As Jack and Zara were rushed to the medical bay, their hands still clasped tightly together, the inhabitants of the celestial nexus and beyond could only wait and hope. The next phase of this interstellar conflict would depend on the recovery of two individuals whose connection had changed the course of galactic history. The power of unity. The medical bay of the celestial nexus hummed with activity, a mix of human and alien technology working in concert to monitor the unconscious forms of Jack and Zara. Days had passed since their monumental effort to halt the Void Collective's attack, and still, they showed no signs of waking. Dr. Ilara, the lead Luminar researcher, stood at their bedside, her luminescence flickering with concern as she studied the readouts. Beside her, Dr. Chen, a human neuroscientist, frowned at his tablet. "Their neural patterns are like nothing I've ever seen," Dr. Chen murmured. "It's as if their minds are intertwined." Dr. Ilara nodded, her light pulsing in agreement. "The energy flow between them is constant. I fear that separating them now could cause irreparable damage to both." As the doctors conferred, a commotion outside the medical bay drew their attention. Commander Vex entered, followed by a delegation of alien diplomats. "Doctors," Vex said, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly, "I need an update on their condition. The Alliance is growing restless. Without Jack and Zara's abilities, our advantage against the Void Collective is slipping away." Dr. Ilara straightened, her luminescence brightening with determination. "Commander, they need more time. Rushing their recovery could be disastrous." Before Vex could respond, a soft groan came from one of the beds. All eyes turned to see Jack stirring, his eyes fluttering open. Moments later, Zora's luminescence began to pulse stronger, and she too showed signs of waking. "Jack, Zora," Dr. Chen exclaimed, rushing to their side. "Can you hear me? How do you feel?" Jack blinked, his gaze unfocused. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. It's different now." Zora's light flickered as she tried to sit up. "We're still connected, even now. It's like we're one mind in two bodies." The room fell silent as the implications of their words sank in. Commander Vex stepped forward, his voice gentle but urgent. "Jack, Zora, I know you've been through an ordeal, but we need your help. The Void Collective has regrouped. They're pushing back against our forces across multiple sectors." Jack and Zora exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them. Then, with a synchronicity that startled everyone present, they swung their legs off their beds and stood. "We understand, Commander," they said in unison, their voices overlapping in an eerie harmony. "We're ready to help." As they made their way to the command center, supported by the medical staff, Jack and Zora marveled at their new state of being. Their connection had deepened beyond anything they had imagined, their thoughts and perceptions blending seamlessly. In the command center, they found barely controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed battles raging across the galaxy, Alliance forces struggling against the renewed Void Collective offensive. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered to life, his face etched with worry. "Harrison, Zora, thank God you're awake. We're losing ground fast. The Void Collective has adapted to our tactics, and we're out of options." Jack and Zora stepped forward, their movements perfectly in sync. When they spoke, it was with one voice. "Admiral, we have an idea. But it's going to take every ounce of trust and cooperation the Alliance can muster." Over the next hour, they laid out their plan. It was audacious, combining luminar energy manipulation techniques with human ingenuity and the diverse technologies of the Alliance species. At its core was a radical idea, not to defeat the Void Collective, but to transform it. "We've seen inside their collective consciousness," Jack and Zora explained. "They're driven by fear and hunger, but there's a longing for something more. If we can show them another way to exist, we might be able to end this war without further bloodshed." The plan was met with skepticism from some quarters, but as the Void Collective pushed ever closer to key Alliance worlds, desperation won out over doubt. Ships were recalled, resources reallocated, and a massive undertaking began. At the heart of it all were Jack and Zora, their enhanced connection allowing them to coordinate efforts across vast distances. They became the linchpin of the operation, their merged consciousness bridging gaps between species that had seemed insurmountable mere weeks ago. As the days passed, tensions rose. The Void Collective pressed their advantage, unaware of the trap being laid for them. Alliance worlds fell, millions were displaced, but still, the plan continued. Finally, after weeks of feverish preparation, everything was in place. The remaining Alliance fleet gathered at a strategically chosen star system, appearing vulnerable and disorganized. As predicted, the Void Collective took the bait, committing the bulk of their forces to what they saw as a killing blow. Jack and Zora stood at the center of the Celestial Nexus's command center, surrounded by representatives from every Alliance species. As the Void Collective fleet approached, they raised their hands in unison. Now, they said, their merged voice resonating with power. Across the star system, hidden emitters sprang to life. They'd broadcast a signal unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, a combination of luminar energy manipulation, human emotional resonance, and the unique frequencies of a dozen other species. The effect on the Void Collective was immediate and staggering. Their ships faltered, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. But this was no mere disruption. The signal carried with it an offer, a glimpse of a new way of existing. Through their deepened connection, Jack and Zora reached out to the Void Collective's consciousness. They showed them visions of cooperation, of technologies that could sustain rather than consume. They offered understanding for the collective's fear and a path towards coexistence. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Then, slowly at first, but with gathering momentum, the Void Collective ships began to power down their weapons. In the command center, cheers erupted as the impossible became reality. The Void Collective, the scourge that had threatened to consume the galaxy, was standing down. But for Jack and Zara, the battle was not yet over. Their consciousness, stretched to its limit, began to fracture under the strain. As the Alliance celebrated around them, they collapsed, their merged minds finally overwhelmed. In the chaos that followed, as medical teams rushed to their aid, a new chapter in galactic history was beginning. The Void Collective, once the greatest threat a galaxy had ever known, was now seeking dialogue. The Alliance, forged in the crucible of war, faced the monumental task of building a lasting peace. And at the center of it all lay two figures, a human and a luminar, their hands clasped tightly even in unconsciousness. Jack and Zara had changed the course of history, but at what cost to themselves? As the medical teams worked frantically to stabilize them, the question on everyone's mind was, would they ever wake up? And if they did, would they still be themselves? The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what the dawn of this new era would bring. The power of unity had won the day, but the true test was yet to come. A new era of understanding. The great hall of the celestial nexus buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy had gathered for an unprecedented event. The signing of the Galactic Concord. It was a treaty not just of peace, but of mutual understanding and cooperation between the former Alliance species and the transformed Void Collective. At the center of the hall stood a simple pedestal, upon which rested the document that would shape the future of countless worlds. But despite the monumental nature of the occasion, many eyes were drawn to two figures seated in the front row, Jack Harrison and Zara. It had been 6 months since the end of the war. 6 months since their shared consciousness had brought the conflict to its unexpected conclusion. Their recovery had been slow and fraught with challenges. For weeks, they had drifted in and out of consciousness, their minds struggling to disentangle after being so deeply merged. Even now, as they sat side by side, an observer might notice the perfect synchronicity of their movements, the way they seemed to communicate without words. They were changed, irrevocably so, but they had survived. Admiral Chen approached them, his usual stern expression softened by a smile. "How are you two holding up?" "Big day." Jack and Zara looked up in unison, their voices overlapping slightly as they spoke. "We're doing well, Admiral." "It's surreal to see it all come together like this." Chen nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and admiration. "What you two accomplished, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. You've changed the course of galactic history." Before they could respond, a hush fell over the crowd. The leaders of the various species began to make their way to the pedestal, each preparing to sign the Concord in turn. As the ceremony progressed, Jack and Zara found their thoughts drifting back over the tumultuous months that had led to this moment. The immediate aftermath of the war's end had been chaos. The Void Collective, suddenly freed from their all-consuming hunger, had been lost and confused. It had taken weeks of careful negotiation, with Jack and Zara acting as intermediaries even from their hospital beds, to establish a framework for coexistence. Meanwhile, the Alliance species had struggled with their own challenges. Old rivalries and suspicions, temporarily set aside in the face of a common enemy, had threatened to resurface. It had taken all of their diplomatic skill, and the occasional nudge from Jack and Zara's unique perspective, to keep the peace. But slowly, painstakingly, progress had been made. The Void Collective, with their vast knowledge accumulated over eons of existence, had begun to share technologies that could solve energy crises across the galaxy. In return, they learned of art, of individual expression, of the beauty and diversity that they had once sought to consume. Jack and Zara had been at the heart of it all, their merged consciousness providing insights that neither human nor Luminar alone could have achieved. They had become a living bridge between species, their very existence a testament to the potential of cooperation and understanding. Their reverie was interrupted as Commander Vex approached the pedestal. The Arcturian's multiple eyes blinked in sequence as he addressed the assembled dignitaries. "Today, we stand on the brink of a new era," Vex began, his voice carrying across the hushed hall. "An era of unprecedented cooperation and mutual understanding. But we must never forget the price paid to reach this point, nor the extraordinary individuals who made it possible." All eyes turned to Jack and Zara as Vex continued. "Jack Harrison and Zara, please join me." On slightly unsteady legs, they rose and made their way to the pedestal. As they walked, their hands found each other, fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. "Your sacrifices, your courage, and your unwavering belief in the potential for peace have brought us to this moment," Vex said, his voice thick with emotion. "On behalf of all gathered here, and countless billions across the galaxy, we thank you." The hall erupted in applause, the sound swelling until it seemed the very station might shake apart from the force of it. Jack and Zara stood there, overwhelmed by the outpouring of gratitude and hope. As the applause finally died down, Vex gestured to the Concord. "Would you do us the honor of being the first to sign?" Jack and Zara exchanged a glance, a lifetime of shared experiences passing between them in an instant. Then, moving as one, they stepped forward and signed their names, not as separate individuals, but as a single, hyphenated unit, Jack Zara Harrison Luminar. As they stepped back, Zora's luminescence pulsing with emotion, Jack cleared his throat. "If we may say a few words." Vex nodded, stepping aside to give them the floor. Jack began, his voice steady but filled with passion. "What we've achieved here today is only the beginning. The challenges we faced, fear, misunderstanding, the drive to consume rather than cooperate, these are not unique to the Void Collective. They exist within all of us, to some degree." Zara continued seamlessly, her light fluctuating in time with her words. "But we've proven that these challenges can be overcome. That with empathy, with the willingness to see from another's perspective, we can achieve the impossible." Their voices merged as they concluded, the duality of their speech a living embodiment of their message. "The connection we share is unique, but the potential it represents is universal. Each of us has the capacity to reach out, to understand, to find common ground even with those who seem most alien. That is the true power of unity, and it is the foundation upon which we must build our shared future." As their words echoed through the hall, a profound silence fell. Then, slowly, it was broken by the sound of applause. Not the thunderous ovation of before, but something deeper, more thoughtful. It was the sound of minds opening, of perspectives shifting, of a galaxy realizing the true magnitude of the change it was embracing. In the days and weeks that followed, as the provisions of the Galactic Concord began to take effect, Jack and Zara found themselves at the forefront of a new kind of exploration. Their unique connection made them invaluable in facilitating understanding between vastly different species. They traveled to worlds across the galaxy, their merged consciousness allowing them to bridge gaps in communication and culture that had long seemed insurmountable. On a crystal world of silicon-based life forms, they helped negotiate trading agreements with carbon-based species. In the gas-giant habitats of plasma beings, they facilitated the exchange of abstract mathematical concepts that pushed the boundaries of known physics. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still those who feared the changes sweeping the galaxy, who clung to old prejudices and suspicions. Jack and Zara faced their share of challenges, from diplomatic tensions to outright hostility. Yet through it all, they persevered, their bond growing ever stronger. They were no longer simply a human and a luminar, but something new, a living symbol of the potential for harmony between all sentient beings. As the years passed, their legacy grew. The techniques they had pioneered for interspecies communication and cooperation became the foundation for a new field of study, Across the galaxy, individuals of different species began to explore the possibility of forming their own deep connections, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. And always, at the heart of this new and ever-changing galaxy, were Jack and Zora. They had started as two individuals from vastly different worlds, brought together by chance and circumstance. Now, they were one, not in the sense of losing their individuality, but of transcending it, becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. As they stood on the observation deck of a starship, watching the swirling colors of a newborn nebula, Jack Zora reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The galaxy was not perfect, perhaps it never would be. But it was growing, learning, striving towards a future brighter than any single species could have imagined. They'd raised their hands, fingers intertwined, silhouetted against the cosmic spectacle before them. In that moment, they were more than just themselves. They were the embodiment of hope, of the endless potential that exists when beings reach out across the void to connect with one another. The human and the luminar, once so different, now inseparable. A living testament to the power of understanding, of empathy, of unity. As the starship sailed on into the unknown, they faced the future not with fear, but with anticipation. For in this vast, wondrous universe, they knew that the greatest adventures and the most profound connections were yet to come.